There we go. Oh, gotta open that up a little bit more. I have a little tab over my um, video camera. Let's see here. Here we go. Hi, everyone. I'm actually wearing my NYBG shirt today. I know it's on one side. Here we go. Yeah. So hoping to actually head over there this week if possible, to record yeah, some footage of their exhibit. Um, I hope everyone had a really nice weekend. Brian and I actually went on Saturday to one of my best friends from high school. He actually bought some land upstate, and so it was like about 2 hour, like a 2 hour drive. It took us a little bit longer because there was a little bit of traffic, and then there was like huge downpour, so we were driving a little bit much more slowly. So it took us like 2.5 hours to get there, but absolutely beautiful. Uh, wow. Old like historic farmhouse with like 7 acres of land. So we took a hike on the property, and it was just bonkers. It was absolutely beautiful. And Brian and I were just like, oh, so we were like, oh man, because we've been talking about that, whether because we definitely want to upgrade, and so whether that would be a condo or a house. But we weren't really sure. So Brian's much more partial to a condo, and I'm more partial to a house with some land. Um, but he fell in love. He fell in love with the area. So I don't know. We're looking. We're just perusing. But something that was really cool is we came upon so many different things. There were all these different species of mushroom there, which was really neat. Um, and we even found a skeleton. It was only the spinal cord with like the vertebrae with the ribs. And so we each took a vertebrae, and it had been picked clean. We're not sure. I have a group on Facebook that does bone and fossil collecting. So I think it's a fawn. I think it might have been a deer. Um, and so of course we had to take one because it was just so perfect. And so he has two boys, and so it was a lot of fun. It was seriously a lot of fun. Um, so many different types of plants, and they actually have some gypsy moth issues, and I had never seen a gypsy moth in person before. I've only read about them, and so that was nuts. Seeing like the egg cases on some of the trees and how they're going to be trying to treat them. But holy moly, I'd never seen that before. um Oh, I should have shared the pictures onto the computer, but I think there we go. So I did get them on my phone, but it basically looks like this. Let me see if the glare. Maybe if I lower the hold on. How do I? Yeah, if I lower the brightness, maybe that'll work a little bit better. There we go. But this is how those egg sacs look, and so it kind of looks like a orangey kind of beige, and they're all on the like the furrows of the bark, and so it was kind of indiscriminate. It was on apple trees, on um, peach trees, pine trees, oak trees. So it wasn't like on a specific species focus, but I had never seen that ever. um They had a bunch of shagbark hickory, which is one of my favorites. I love that bark. It's just, it's so neat. And what was really interesting too was right in front of their house, they had some jump seed that had been planted. So they hadn't, the only thing they had like purposely planted there were some trees that his brother, who I also went to school with, had planted, like a hawthorn, And it was just a couple of trees. But other than that, nothing that's coming up now they had actually planted. And there's a bunch of jump seed, and it when I saw the shag bark hickory and saw that they have jump seed, I was like, oh my gosh, there's like this old traditional remedy of mixing jump seed with I can't say shag bark. I can't say it today. Hickory, mixing them as a remedy for whooping cough. So I was like, holy moly, and what are the odds you have it growing right next to one another? They had let me see, they had young pine trees and young spruces popping up all over. Um, and self-heal. So that's my hand. There was a bunch of self-heal. So which is actually today I have a couple of plants that I was going to show you because folks wanted to know a little bit more about some weeds that you could actually use. So I am going to be talking a little bit about that today. But yeah, it was just so cool. I took so many photos. There were so many different types of mushrooms. We caught a toad. There was like a frog. There was a bunch of like daddy long legs. Oh, we also saw some ghost pipe, which is really cool. So it's an example of a flower that has no, it does not feed via um, photosynthesis. So it doesn't make any food for itself. So it's all white. And it actually gets its nutrients from like the mycelium and um, kind of taps into the reserves of like other networks, which was really cool. Um, oh, and one of my favorite finds was some forget-me-nots. Um, and it's one of those few flowers that are naturally blue. Just it's very hard for flowers to be naturally blue. And for those of you who maybe have not read it yet, let me just pull that up real quick. Um, the Nature's Palette book. So let me see here. Here we go. Share. Okay, so I'm going to post it here in the Zoom. So this is a book called Nature's Palette. Feel free to download it. And it's all about the science behind plant color. So if this is something that tickles your fancy, check that out. So I was really, really happy that we spotted some. And then of course my friend Andrew has a big library as well, and so we were like trading book recommendations, and he was telling me about this one. It's called The Cat Skills from Wilderness to Woodstock, and it's a whole history of that region, but also of the plant life of the trees and how it used to actually be much more there used to be much more like pine forest, and how that was removed, so that gave way to like the hickory and the oaks to kind of take more hold, which is a big part of his land, which comprises a lot of the trees on his land. And there is a, let me see here, Brian sent it. Let me copy that link. So that book specifically, if that is something of interest, um, here we go. Oh, since so well, if you click on it, you'll actually get the file, so you don't have to buy it. Um, um, I don't have a picture of it. I was just I was just mentioning it. Um, but oh, for the cat skills book, I just put a link to it too. Uh, here, I mean, I have it like this. The cat skills from wilderness to Woodstock, but now you can read it for free with the link that I just dropped in the chat. So, so no need to buy it. You can just you can download it and check it out. So it's available for everyone to enjoy. Um, so I'm excited to dig in. But yeah, so he was telling us about the book. It's like one of his favorite books, and he it was one of the first books he read when they moved there. He found it at a local shop there, and it's amazing. And yeah, and so they're going to be planning to have grow mushrooms there and set up a whole working farm. So really excited to see what they do with the land. And there's an open invitation, and so we're gonna try to head back a couple times during the rest of the summer and into the fall, definitely to check it out. So I'll shoot some fun videos. It was our first time going on Saturday, so it was more like just taking it in. But yeah, it's really cool. So I wanted to share that with you. Um, and so let me open up here. Ba, ba, ba. There we go. So, since some folks were interested, I was going to cover just talk about a couple of common weeds that you might be finding. They're very prevalent in North America, especially, but many of these are native to Europe and to Asia, and so you might you might recognize these. So let me share my screen here. There we go. Let me move this up here. Present. Yep. And there we go. So welcome again to another session of the Urban Garden Learning Series. And let's see, we're gonna go right into it. And so some urban weeds. Um, so just introducing you to a couple of these. So this is actually me. This was a student who took a picture of me showing some small garlic mustard. Actually, garlic mustard is one of my favorite invasives. Which I know it sounds like an oxymoron, like favorite invasive, but they are here, and it looks like they were purposely actually brought here as like a salad herb, a plant that was purposely it's an alternative to like yellow mustard. You can make mustard out of those seeds, and so they were purposely planted in a lot of areas, and they escaped. So unfortunately, those seeds, they're very prolific. They have spread seriously, like all up and down the East Coast, all into the West. And lots of our forests are really seeing issues with these, but I'll get more into that. um yeah, and just this is something I really love to do. I take groups of all ages, small and older adults, to these different parks and introduce them to a lot of these species and how they can use them. And and I feel it's also good too because there's so many volunteer opportunities for folks, because the parks, they're struggling. They don't get that great of a budget, so they really do rely on the good graces of their of their donors, if they're a nonprofit, and also the time of their volunteers. And so sometimes they really need folks to come and help remove some of these invasives, especially if they're actively trying to kind of reforest an area and plant native, saplings, like young pines, for instance. But we were working on a project with the Parks Department in Flushing Meadows Park, where they put some young pines that were getting completely overcrowded by mugwort. So it was growing so tall that it was completely shading out these poor trees that were just trying to kind of get a start. And so we had to come in there and essentially, cut everything to the ground, so that all the mugwort to the ground, so that we could just have those pines kind of take center stage and get all that sun and moisture and everything that they require. So um, sometimes you have to do that. um, if it was a different area, I would have loved to have harvested all that mugwort, but it's a high traffic area, and we're not sure about the soil. But I'll definitely talk about where where you can actually take some of these weeds from. Um, and of course, I always want to mention, if you're out and about looking at plants, sometimes even in your yard, even in your backyard or your front yard, just be aware that sometimes if you are ever going to try to ingest anything, sometimes there are lookalikes. There are plants that have grown to, sometimes it's the opposite. So there's a poisonous plant, and then there might be a plant that has kind of evolved to mimic that poisonous plant, but it's actually very edible. But then when you work with that edible plant, it's easier to kind of get it backwards, and you might accidentally grab the the venomous, but not venomous, sorry, the poisonous lookalike. Um, so definitely, be just aware. You can always look them up, see what's going on. Another thing to also take into consideration are threatened or endangered species. So it's very different from what we consider, weeds. Those are here in great numbers, so that's not a problem. But sometimes they are, threatening other species. And what happens too is sometimes there's just other plants that maybe you don't recognize, and maybe it's a flower that really catches your eye. Maybe you find out about a certain plant that you'd like to work with, in your herbalism practice. Uh, Always double check to make sure, especially if you only see one, to see if what's the status of that plant in your area. So certain plants, like there are wild orchids that they're terrestrial or orchids, so they grow out of the ground, that they're here in the America, in North America, and they are very either threatened or endangered. And if you pull that one plant out of the ground, that's it. That's you've pulled it out of the genetic pool of your ecosystem. Um, and so you want to be very, very mindful of that you don't end up, yanking out something that, it was just, it might be the only one in your area. So if you're not sure, take a picture, you can post it up. You're always welcome to send anything my way. So just before you yank it out, if you're unsure, especially something that it definitely catches your eye, you just want to be mindful of that. Also, when working with different plants, and this is also with house plants, there are a lot of these plants that are related to each other, that are part of the hobby, of the horticultural hobby, that are related. And so if you have allergens, let's say to certain types of species, like let's say sunflowers or something like that, if you're growing something like daisies, coneflowers, things like that, right in front of your garden, that might elicit an allergic reaction. And also taking it internally too. And then toxicity, there are a lot of plants that have, something to worry about. Um, and you just definitely, sometimes it's not immediate. So the effect is not immediate. You might take it, you might have, like, eat a leaf, let's say, while you're out and about, and you think, oh well, nothing, it's been a couple minutes, I'm totally fine. I don't feel nauseous, my tongue doesn't feel tingly, I'm fine. But yeah, this could, especially with mushrooms, this can sometimes be delayed even 6 to 8 hours. So I'm part of the New York Mycological Society, and that has actually happened, where there have been folks that were really, really positive about their identification, and they had picked some mushrooms and they ate them, and they swore that they were completely fine and harmless. And yeah, they ended up having to go to the hospital. It was a couple that ended up having to go to the hospital, um, because they had picked the wrong species, and they survived. but it was not fun. It was a really bad food poisoning, that they had to go to urgent care. Um, and so just be aware of that. I dropped poison control's number in there. It's a good number to have like on your fridge or even saved to your phone, especially if you start to get into foraging and things like that, just to be safe. It's really great to just have that ready to go, ready to go. um, so where can you go? What where how do you know what to do? Um, so there's a couple options. There are actually local foraging groups that are forming in different states. So you can always kind of look and see if there's maybe a local meetup, maybe there's like a Facebook group, or um, just try to see if like a community forum, things like that. Try to see if there's a group that's kind of already established. Because this is great if you're just starting out, because they'll help you with that identification and you kind of get to learn as you go. um, Also, community gardens are great, because again, it's a great learning experience. But what also happens is there tends to just be a lot of these weeds or otherwise volunteer plants that are growing and taking advantage, right? Because you're adding fertilizer and watering these plants, are like, hey, this is great spot. um, so sometimes a lot of those weeds, though, are highly medicinal. I know some community gardens here purposely let those volunteer plants kind of take hold, because a lot of them we can actually harvest them, especially gardens that are kind of going the organic route, and have had like soil testing. So it's wonderful to kind of let them go, and then it's time for a weed pull, and folks come out and they can grab stuff. It's really awesome. And none of them were actually purposely planted. They just kind of found their way there, either like seeds being dropped, sometimes soil that's brought into the garden that's dropped off can have some seeds kind of hidden in there. So it's cool to see what pops up in our local community gardens. Also, yeah, reach out to like local parks, environmental education centers. Try to see if one, if they have if they're able to, if they have like a volunteer program for invasive species removal, if they can verify that there's like no spraying, or maybe they can show you their like soil testing if they've done any fairly recently. So just before anything, don't assume at some local parks, because they might actually be spraying, and you don't want to be consuming that. If there's private land, where maybe there is someone that is going the organic route, they have, let's say, a big issue with mugwort, and you're like, whoa, I really need some mugwort. um, Go ahead and ask. So just make sure to ask, right? Of course, because you don't want to get in trouble for trespassing. So if you're unsure about the status of the land, if it's owned by anyone, just try to contact, like, someone in your county, just to be sure, so that you're not going to get in trouble. And then there's like local nature preserves and like wildlife refuges. Um, they're sometimes looking for volunteers because they're going the organic route, because they want to support a lot of the native wildlife. But sometimes they're getting choked out by these weeds, and so they're more than happy to go, hey, sure, you want to take that mugwort, or you look at all that beach rose, you want some beach rose, or hey, there's so much garlic mustard, please just take it. And so they're more than happy for you to remove those invasives, and as long as you're not touching the natives. But again, make sure you have permission, so you're not you're not gonna get in trouble. Um, and so going further, sometimes you can get permits, or special permissions. So just check in your local areas. For instance, through Trees New York, I have, let's for pruning for trees here in the city. I'm what is called a citizen pruner, so I can go out and prune back trees. I have permission to do that. If there's a broken limb that's less, it's within 10 feet of the ground, I'm able to remove it. So I have a lot of gear. I have a lot of tools and things that I'm able to use to go ahead and remove that. If there's like a branch that's growing kind of low that'll kind of smack people in the face, I'm able to trim those back. So there is training, and I know that's available here, and um, you could see if there's a local program by you. And then I'm also a super steward, and I got special permission from the city to work in some of our parks, one of which is Forest Park, and I'm able to remove plant matter. So it's a permit that I'm allowed to remove plant matter as long as it's not native, but for invasive species, for ecosystem management. And so, those permits are good for a couple years, and then you have to get them renewed. And then of course, you have to, sometimes that involves a little bit of reporting. So you got to kind of tell them when you're there, how much in terms of pounds, how much you removed, what areas you kind of worked on, and things like that. So sometimes there's, some reporting related to getting these types of permissions, but it's definitely worth it. It's a lot of fun, and you're gonna have to carry them on you. And so try to see if there's any of these trainings or educational programs in your town, because that's something that's going to be really handy, and it's great. It's a really great learning experience too. Also, try to see if maybe any local parks that you really like might have these Friends Up groups. So like I'm part of the Friends of Alley Pond Park. So I'm part of their conservation committee. So you can do these types of things too. So try to find at a local park. Maybe there isn't one at a local park and you'd like to start one. So that's definitely something that you can do. Grab volunteers, learn how to identify. Maybe you could get like a local ranger to kind of teach you, and then kind of go off, and you're able to kind of cut things back. And in terms of, I was mentioning, soil contamination. So you want to make sure that it's safe if you're actually consuming it, because it's one thing to go in and help the parks remove it. It's a whole other thing to actually take it. So if you do end up, getting these permits and things, and you kind of want to see if you would actually be able to not only help with invasive species removal, but then also in that act of removal, you're technically harvesting. Just check. You can actually contact like the local authority of that park, of that area, to see if they've done any soil contamination studies. Um, you what you could do is there's sometimes local colleges that have science labs that are open to the public for you to submit in a soil sample. And so soil samples are not just a sample from one area, but rather you get little samples from different sections within, I'm forgetting how big of the square footage it is. But basically you're taking a bunch of samples and combining them and then sending it in. And then they'll let you know what levels, if there's lead or any types of contaminants in that soil. And it's usually not too expensive. Of course, it would be on your dime, but it might be a great way just to see. And you can do this with your own land too. So if you have a front yard or a backyard and you're really curious, a lot of local colleges tend to offer up these services. And yeah, and then there are some things like some cool websites like with the EPA and the USDA that might be helpful. So I drop those in there. Yeah, and so the terms, right? Weeds, invasive, aggressive. um, we've also heard nicer ways of putting it, like volunteer plants. So yeah, these words are usually kind of mixed up, and it can get very confusing because some folks will call a native plant invasive, when the word that they're looking for is more aggressive or maybe prolific. Um, and not necessarily, it's not actually invasive. So invasive is usually a plant that was introduced. It's not common to the area, and it's very like aggressive itself. It's very aggressive, it's very prolific. And so then it kind of spreads, and you find yourself removing it. Um, a weed is more so any plant that grows where you technically don't want it to. So even if a rose grew in a cornfield, it would be considered a weed technically. So the word weed doesn't necessarily always mean it's an invasive or it's just more so a plant that's growing in an area where it wasn't purposely planted. And then aggressive, that can usually just mean, it grows really, really quickly. So if anyone here has ever grown like mints, for instance, like spearmint, especially, once you plant that, usually that kind of takes over. So if you're going to grow any like spearmint or peppermint, I really recommend like a raised bed or just a closed container, because once you put that in the ground, they're very, very aggressive. They'll just spread. Um, yeah, and I've grown spearmint purpose like uh myself personally, and I had like spearmint, and then I had it was in a box with lavender, thyme, and peppermint, and it was like taking them out. It was just spearmint. So yeah, they'll they'll take over. They're it's they'll spread. Um, but yeah, so then this can cause a little bit of confusion, right? Because then folks are like, oh yeah, I don't plant that native. They're talking about a plant that might be native, but they're like, oh yeah, it's so invasive, and it's not that the native is invasive. It can't be invasive. It's just it might grow a little bit aggressive, especially if you're providing everything it likes. It'll definitely spread a little bit more. But it's native, so definitely plant native if possible. So here's just a couple of examples of some of these volunteer plants or weeds that you might find. Um, so burdock. So is anyone here familiar with burdock? I'd love to know in the chat. Definitely let me know if you've ever seen burdock. Um, so it has some crazy common names, and it's also like mixed up a lot, like with cocklebur, for instance, which is a whole other plant. And these are, I mean, I really like how they look. They really like kind of like the edges, the periphery, and so they'll grow. Let me see here. So here are the leaves. So maybe you do recognize it, but maybe you didn't know what it was called. But they get these really gorgeous leaves. They're very soft to the touch, very, very velvety. And they're like this darker green on top with a silver underside. So the adaxial, which is the top part of the leaf, is this nice darker shade of green, and the abaxial is silver. And the vein, like the mid vein, as you can see, has like a pink kind of color, purple kind of color to it. Um, and these are biennial, and so the first year they're just kind of these leaves. And the second year is when they start getting tall and they put out flowers. And I've seen these get 6 feet tall. It's crazy. I'd never seen a burdock that tall. It was at the Queen's Botanical Garden, and they had just let it kind of grow, because it was funny enough. It was in their medicinal garden, and it was a volunteer plant. They did not purposely put it there, but they let it grow, and this thing was huge. I'd never seen one that big. Um, so these leaves are actually edible. Um, for some folks that they might not like the texture because but it's cut up. It's a common salad green, a stew herb as well. But what's really prized are the roots. Um, here, hold on. I think I had. Oh yeah, here we go. These are some burdocks that I had. Oh, that's a mugwort at the end. but those giant leaves that you're seeing, um, and so I had done a walk like 2 years ago, and we spotted these really, really tall ones. They weren't as tall as the one I saw at the garden, um, but yeah, they were pretty large. And then these are the flowers. So they have these really neat flowers. They kind of look like a thistle. And they might come in like pink. You might see them like a darker purple. You might see them actually like white. Really beautiful. And once they close, you get these really cool seed pods. And so these are the seed pods. And so the seed pods themselves were actually the inspiration for Velcro. So the person who invented Velcro, brought Velcro to the masses, was actually a Swiss electrician. And he would love to go hiking with his dog, and his dog was always getting full of these. And he basically one day he just decided to take a closer look, the microscope, and you saw these kind of like the hooks at the end. This is a microscopic kind of zoomed in photograph here. Um, and he figured, wow, this might be a really great way for textiles to be, um, for clothing and things like this might be a really cool idea when it was predominantly buttons. And he went to like over a dozen offices where they kind of left him out of the room because they were like, yeah, nope, nobody's gonna go for this. We're because he had made basically like a plastic version of it essentially. Um, and no, finally he did find an investor, and we know Velcro today. But yeah, it was actually inspired by burdock seeds. And burdock seeds, I actually have found references of them being used where they're crushed, and they're used to help with decongestion. I haven't used it personally. I seem to be very sensitive to the burrs themselves, so I've gotten them stuck on my sweater and stuff as I'm hiking. And if I don't catch it, and they're kind of rubbing on my skin for a little bit, um, they have what are called papas hairs. They're very tiny little hairs. Once you open it to get the seeds, you really see the hairs, and that I seem to be allergic to it. So I'll get like a pretty bad, pretty bad rash. So be mindful of that. But oh, here we go. I did include a picture here where you could see those little papa's hairs. And so those hairs are actually very common in other members of this family. So this is in the Asteraceae family, which is daisies and sunflowers, dandelions. And so those really have a lot of hair. But these are just a little bit more bristly, and so I feel like that's why they agitate the skin a little bit more. Um, but yeah, these seeds are used, but it's really the roots that are prized. And so if you are going into working with burdock, you can eat it raw. So when it's raw, it looks like this. It's white. I've seen it kind of peeled and then cut up into cubes and added into salads. This one's kind of more kind of like what was it called when they use like the shredder, like the carrot shredder? So they kind of use that. But yeah, and it's eaten either like that or added to salad. I've seen it used like that, but primarily the most typical use is it when it's dried. It's dried and then it's used. And I love it as a tea. Um, Tea is great. But it's much better as an infusion. So the tea, you're not really gonna, it's only a short steep time. Um, you don't really get a lot out of it. It's better if you use it as an infusion. And so you want to let it sit overnight. And it's great in combination with dandelion. So dandelion root and burdock root, you let that sit overnight. Oh, so nice. I really, really like that. And as you can see, there's just so many ways, for reasons, right, that you can use it. So it's great for things, also for um, lots of internal inflammation. Antipyretic is for to bring down a fever. Alternative, so it's hepatoprotective, so it has a really great it kind of has like a relationship with your liver where it basically kind of promotes liver kind of action, and so it's hepatoprotective, so it's great if you want to kind of support your liver. It's also great as its own antibiotic as well. Of course, if you have a very serious infection, sometimes you need just stronger stronger antibiotics. But it is something that you could use for like a mild infection. Um, and then demulcents are usually things like marshmallow root, slippery elm, but burdock falls in that category where it's very soothing and cooling to like the digestive tract. So if you're having issues, that might be really really helpful. And it's also a diaphoretic in that it will help you actually sweat out when you're having a fever. Sometimes folks get a really bad fever, but they're not sweating. It's like they're boiling, but they're not sweating. And diaphoretics are great in that they actually relax the pores. So sometimes that's what's actually happening is it's kind of clenched, everything's kind of closed. And so diaphoretics are a great way. It kind of pushes everything kind of outward, and so it will relax those pores, and it kind of allows all that sweat to finally kind of come out. Um, so it's a great way to help kind of break a fever. Uh, but yeah, I really really like burdock, and it's great also for folks that have issues with um, skin eruptions, sometimes like eczema as well. This is something that you can enjoy. Now, it does lower your temperature. It makes you feel cold. So it's like it doesn't actively actually lower your temperature, but more so it just makes you feel colder. So if you're someone like me, that's my constitution. I have a very cold constitution. So prolonged use, so more than a few days, you might start to get very, very cold. You just feel like colder than usual. Then you should stop using it. um, because yeah, I always have like cold hands and feet. So when I have burdock, it's I mean, when I'd like to, if I'm like, oh yeah, I'd really like to have some burdock and dandelion infusion. Um, but yeah, if you're gonna use it long term, just be wary of that. Um, Here's just an example of what the root looks like when you're preparing it. So I've actually they're also called gobo, and I've found them in Japanese shops and where they're taller than me. Um, and what's really neat is that they're grown commercially inside like barrels. And so they're grown, and then the barrels kind of like they're split and they're kind of held together by like a belt. And so when they're ready, they basically just kind of undo the belt, separate the barrel, and they're able to just kind of remove the soil really easily. And you have this intact root. It's such a neat process. Otherwise, if you were trying to get it out from the dirt, usually you will break that root. That root does go several feet down, so about 4 to 6 feet. And so if you're pulling it yourself, you very most likely will be breaking that root. So, but what's great is it'll come back. It'll come back next year. Um, but yeah, you'll at least have a nice chunk of it. And this is once it has been dried. So it's seriously a really cool plant to get to know. And I had a student of mine that she had come to a couple of my walks. So she was just learning about plant identification. And what I loved is that one day she texts me after one of our recent walks and she goes, I have a burdock growing in my tree pit right in front of my house. And it's big, so it didn't just like come out of nowhere. It was obviously there, but her brain had just not registered it. And so it wasn't until she like met the plant and got to know the plant and knew how to identify it that it's like finally her brain picked up like there's a burdock right there. And that's a really cool thing once you start to get to know plants. So dandelion, I feel like this one folks might know. Very much so. It's very, very common. It's spread so many places. It's crazy how the span that this plant has taken. But and it's thanks in part to their seed dispersal method. So as you can see here, the seeds just blow away in the wind. Um, and sometimes it's not even just the wind that's doing it. Sometimes it's humans picking them up and blowing them away. And so they have spread far and wide. And some of those fun common names. I'm sorry, my cats are wrestling right now. Hey guys. There we go. Um, so like swine snout, puffballs, blowball, lion's tooth is in reference to the leaf. So I'll show you that in a moment. Um, but then my favorite common name is pissabed, and it's because one of the big issues for sailors was scurvy. So low vitamin C would cause them to have scurvy. Um, and so what they would do is the ships would have dried green like plant material like dandelion leaves, and they would have that in barrels on the ships, and they would add that to the food in some way or another, right? The problem is that dandelion is a great diuretic, and so diuretic means that it's kind of pushing moisture, water out of you. And so it was very common for folks that the sailors to end up sleep while they were sleeping, end up urinating in their beds. So it became a very common name to use when referring to the plant because of that. They would just, you know, while they were sleeping. um, and I mean, these grow everywhere. These grow on perfectly manicured lawns, to parking lots, to on just sidewalks on the concrete, like in between the cracks. They're literally everywhere. They're incredibly resilient. It's such an actual pretty flower. The yellow, hold on, here we go. Oh, it's farther down, so I'll show you the flower in a moment. But this is the foliage. So there are different species of dandelion. So as you can see, there's a couple examples here. So these are just different species of dandelion, but they have seriously spread, and it's something that you can find even in farmers markets now. They're being sold. So they do have a bitter taste. I love to make pesto, dandelion pesto. I like bitter foods, and so they're really great for your digestion. So incorporate them as you can, as you know your palate allows. But this is something that's really great, dandelion pesto. Um, and as you can see, where they get the lion's tooth name, and you see how jagged those leaves are. And so dandelion is dente de león. So the French, so tooth of a lion, is dandelion, and that's where the name actually originated from. But it's all related to these jagged edges here. And as you can see, they will literally grow anywhere. Uh, if you know if they can grow, that's where they're gonna grow. So it's very common to find them in the most odd places. But they grow in this rosette kind of fashion, and so they're growing from a center point outward, kind of like an echeveria. So they'll grow like that, and so you'll find them kind of like a nice mound of leaves. I really like this bigger one. That would be amazing to harvest. And then these are the flowers, and so absolutely amazing. These are actually really delicious. So dandelion flowers are edible. So the whole entire plant is edible. The leaves, even the stems. They do have like a little bit of a white latex, so if you do get bit by a mosquito or even like stung by a bee, if you have a dandelion around, you can actually break the stem, and there's like this white latex that you can apply to the skin, and it's really great for itching. It's an anti-inflammatory. So it's a good thing to know with dandelion. But you can make fritters. You can actually cook these up. The dandelion flowers, they're actually really cool. So and they're edible. It's great to enjoy. But yes, the biggest thing that folks know them for are their seed heads. And so I found these really cool videos um, of it drying out and opening up and then it blowing away. Uh, they're super cool. It's a really cool way for seeds to spread. If you're really interested in seeds, there's a great book called The Triumph of Seeds, and it's a story. It says this father, and he's teaching his son about seeds, and through that teaching, he's kind of falling in love again with seeds, and it's kind of making him tap into his childhood wonderment. It's a really, really beautiful book. And it teaches you a lot of fun facts about different types of seeds. And here's just a closer look, just so you can see how these are actually connected to the flower head. Um, Super neat. They're very, very aerodynamic. And yeah, so the entirety of the plant, as I mentioned, is edible, like the whole thing. But the root is definitely what is used more so medicinally. And so the roots, you can actually collect those, and they're actually great for your kidneys. They're a lithotriptic as well, and so they actually are able to help break down kidney stones. So I've had kidney stones twice in my life. It's not fun. It's not fun in my 20s. It was only a couple years apart, and that was horrendous. That was horrendous. Um, and yeah, dandelion is something that you can actually use. It helps to kind of break down the materials, the crystallization, and then sometimes if they're large enough, they'll give you basically a medication that's derived from an extract of the dandelion root, and they'll pair that with sonic kind of waves, and that will actually break down the crystals, those stones, a lot to make them a lot smaller, so it's a lot easier to pass. Um, and yeah, I mean you can have them in like an alcohol extract, but as a tea, you really get a lot of the medicinal aspects of it. But yeah, it's a really cool plant. You can have them as salad greens. Uh, it's very refreshing. Um, I really, really like dandelion greens. And here's an example of the fritters. You can make fritters out of the flowers. I did see someone posting on Instagram about making a garland out of the unopened buds. So I really want to see if I can find enough buds to try that this year. So you basically string them up while they're still closed, and then when they open up, it's like you end up having a garland of the puffballs of the flower heads. And then I mentioned garlic mustard earlier. So this is one of my favorite invasives, as I said. It's just so good. It is a mustard plant, but it tastes very garlicky. It has that taste, that aroma when you rub it too. So that's a great way to know, because it looks like a lot of things. So it really looks like creeping Charlie. It really looks. Some people will mix it up with violet as well. Um, so it does have a lot of lookalikes. Um, but the smell is what's going to give it away. And so if you rub that leaf and you smell it, you'll smell that garlic. And so I also make pesto out of garlic mustard. Oh, so good. So this is great for folks that actually might be allergic to garlic. So I'm allergic to onions. I can eat garlic. I love garlic. But if it ever came down to it, garlic mustard is a great alternative. If you can't enjoy some. Um, There's some couple fun common names too. So like poor man's mustard. And so those you can't actually use the seeds to make mustard. So it's just not the yellow mustard a lot of people know. But you can still make mustard out of it. And the leaves are what are known as reniform, so they're kidney shaped. Um, and so they have this really cool scalloped edge, and they're really you can see there's a lot of veins, and so it kind of helps you to kind of be able to decipher between the other potential lookalikes, and these also very similarly to dandelion. I've seen them growing along like buildings. In parks, not only along trails, but deeper into. They don't mind a little bit of shade. So I've found them like deeper in the woods where like the canopy only allows like speckled light in. Um, and yeah, they're very tenacious. So especially in Central Park, it's everywhere. That and lesser celandine is like everywhere in Central Park. But here is a closer look at some of that foliage. Here you can just see when it's going to flower, the leaves start looking much more pointy, and it gets these four-petaled flower, which is indicative to plants that are in the mustard family. And so other members in the Brassicaceae family are broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage. So those are all in the mustard family. Um, but yeah, they're so good. The leaves are so good. Now, once they're going into flower, they really kind of lose that taste. So I wouldn't pick them once they're in flower. You pick them once when they're still low to the ground and still kind of rounded. Once they start to get tall and they start to get those like pointier leaves, it's really losing its taste. It gets a little bit more bitter rather than delicious. Um, and here's just also just a comparison. So you could see like common violet and garlic mustard. So again, when it's flowering, it starts to get more of that point. And so these are the ones that I chose to show you because you could see that the leaves are kind of more heart shaped, which is very similar to the common violet. But there is a difference. So they both have a scalloped edge. They both kind of have that heart-shaped look to them. Um, but they are different. And so the veining is very different. Also, the smell is very indicative. And yeah, and these are kind of growing on a stalk with several leaves, and the violets are kind of emerging from the ground with one leaf. Um, yeah, but violets are still edible, so I mean you can't go wrong with the violets either. And here's just an example of ground ivy. So ground ivy, also scalloped edge, but they're much smaller. So they tend to be much smaller. It creates much more of a blanket, kind of on the ground, versus the garlic mustard. It does pop up in a lot of places, but it's growing very, very differently. Here, just an example of the ground ivy. And here's just a close up of the flowers. I mean, the flowers are edible. You could enjoy them if you wanted to. They are very, very pretty too. And here are the seeds. So they have so mustard plants have these seed pods that are called siliques. And so they're very crumbly. It's kind of like a paper texture. Um, and so they're very sensitive to being touched. So some of them, when they're touched, they'll start to open. Um, Sometimes it's like any touch that can break them will kind of set those seeds free. And so if you've ever seen, another member of that family is Lunaria annua, which are like the moon seeds. They call them like the moon plant or silver coin plants, where those seed pods, they're like these perfectly round pods and you can see the seeds inside. um, and it feels very crunchy like wax paper or something. um, and it's the same with these saliques. So they have these really long pods. They kind of look like string beans, but they're pointing out like this all along the plant, and when you touch them they'll open up and there's so many seeds. I was reading a study that there was one plant that produced over 1,000 seeds. So you can see why they're very prolific. There's also been back and forth studies, but there was discussion about the seeds of potentially being allelopathic. And that means when seeds will kind of give off like chemical, like enzymes, which essentially suppress the germination of other seeds around it. So it can kind of take over an area. So if you have garlic mustard growing in your yard and you're wondering, well, I had planted all these other plants and in that spot and they're not coming up, but the garlic mustard is coming up, and that could be a potentiality. So the whole plant is used as well, similarly to dandelion. It's great to use also if you have any respiratory issues. A vermifuge is something to get rid of like worms and parasites. So it's something that's been used for a while as like an alcohol extract. To help with that. Vulneraries for cuts. So cuts, scrapes. That's one of the first things I grab is garlic mustard if yarrow is not available. I love yarrow as well. Um, but garlic mustard is wonderful. It's a great antiseptic. So putting that on there. Also a great diaphoretic. And so for folks, if you're having a fever, this is a great tea to have. I've seen it. It's been infused in oils. It's also mixed in like salves and like balms for folks to have like in a first aid kit if they get any like cuts or scrapes while they're out. It's great, and it tastes amazing. So you can also just enjoy it just for the taste. So if this is a plant that's growing on your property, you're like, wait, I can actually eat this. Yes, you can eat it. You can enjoy it. And here's just an example of the pesto. So good. I really recommend garlic mustard pesto if you ever get a chance to try it. And then mugwort. So I think I only have like two more plants I'll talk about, and then I'll take questions. But yeah, mugwort. Mugwort is one of those really prolific plants. It was one that I saw a lot, even just at my friend's property this weekend. It was already like 4 feet tall. So it gets very tall. It can shade out other plants that you're wanting to grow. But this plant was one of those that was introduced, and it looks like it was introduced in different ways. So it looks like some people did purposely plant it in their gardens. It is related to like wormwood, which is used to make absinthe. So they're in the same family, Artemisia. Uh, and so some believe it came that way as well as in the ballasts of ships. And so um, when ships, they'll kind of take in water to kind of help balance them out. And it's in something called a ballast. And once they get to port, it's kind of released. And it looks like that has led to the introduction of so many other things too, like different types of invasive mollusks, like types of mussels and clams and things that aren't native to the area. But there has been this was actually the first time I had seen it was in a textbook about invasive species management, that this was believed to be one of the ways that they were spread so far and wide, was because they do tend to grow by beaches as well. They're very salt tolerant, and so that's believed to be one of the ways that they spread around so quickly. But they're very aromatic. If you've ever seen mugwort, or if you recognize this, it has a silvery bottom, similarly to burdock. But when you crush them, it's a very like piney type of scent. Seriously delicious kind of smell. And it's a great pot herb. So folks do kind of grow it on purpose, and it will get kind of woody as it gets larger. And then it's an aromatic that's added to stews. And then the leaves are also used for teas. There's so many ways that mugwort is used, and it grows anywhere you let it grow, it will grow. So I picked some of the like voracious weeds to talk about today because I was like, these are probably the most common ones, and these are all probably recognizable to you. Um, so, oh no, hold on. Let me go over. There we go. There we go. Um, so here's a closer look at the foliage. So you can see that silvery bottom with the green on top. And this is when they go to flower. So I happen to be allergic to mugwort pollen. So I drink mugwort tea, I drink mugwort tincture, and I'm fine. But that's the leaves. Um, but when I am around mugwort when it's in flower, I can't stop sneezing. Um, I'm actually going through immunotherapy right now. It's been a couple weeks in now. And yeah, so they're giving me little doses of it every week of mugwort pollen so that I can build up more tolerance to it. So hopefully this because these start to go into flower kind of like late August, September. So we'll see. We'll see. This is once they start to go to seed. Here I was taking a picture of how they look when they are going into flower. The leaves kind of thin out. They look kind of much more scraggly, right? They're not as wide and they're kind of really, really, really thin, more wispy when they're going into flower. And then these are the seeds, and these are also in the Asteraceae family. So this is the family with sunflowers, burdock, dandelions. These are all in the same family. And so you could see that the seeds do have a very similar shape. Yeah, and so mostly it's the roots and the leaves that are actually used. Um, it's a great anti-inflammatory. In terms of a dream enhancer, so I actually, this is like a traditional use. Now, when I use the tincture, what it helps me, it's not necessarily giving, it doesn't give me crazy dreams. So it does have, so again, it's related to wormwood, which makes absinthe. So for some folks, it can kind of give them really crazy dreams. For me, though, I don't get a crazy dream, but rather I remember my dreams. So usually when I wake up, I know I dreamt. Maybe I remember like the last couple seconds of my dream. Um, but that's it. I have, once I wake up, it's like I forget my dreams. But when I remember to have my mugwort, I really remember my dreams, like it in excruciating detail. Um, and so it's definitely something like that for me. That's what it does for me. It just really hones in that ability to recall my dreams. It's also anorexigenic, and so this means that it helps folks to stimulate their appetite. So if folks are having trouble, sometimes it's like medication or different types of even anxiety, things like that, that will cause you to kind of lose your appetite. It's something that you can use as a tea that'll be great to kind of stimulate hunger. So here's a close up of those leaves. It also gets this purple kind of like tinge on the stems, and it does get woody as they get taller. It's also used in traditional Chinese medicine to make moxa. So it's these they make like these little incense it's crushed to make these incense little balls essentially that are put on the meridians on different pressure points, and then moxibustion it's called, and so then they'll light them, and it's kind of like the smell and the heat that's generated from it kind of helps the pathways. That's the belief. um, but it I haven't tried this personally, but it's something that it is still used today. Um, so you can, maybe if you do acupuncture, I've done acupuncture a couple times and I actually really, really like acupuncture. But I've never tried this. And here's just to show you an example of another way where it's not made into an actual cone, but rather it's still powdered, but they put like it. it's almost like a little burrito. They cover it in like a paper, and then that's put on the very tip of a acupuncture needle that then is placed in the skin. And they're very shallow. These aren't very deep needles. And they're very, very, very small. So it's like you really don't feel them going into the skin. But this is another way that they're used. But that's actually mugwort inside of that little burrito there that it looks like one. And then mullein. So I saw a bunch of mullein yesterday. Sorry, the day before yesterday. And it was great to see in person again. It'd been a bit, um, but yeah, mulleine's awesome. Uh, mullein is one of my favorite herbs to use. I use it almost daily. So I have infusions that I prepare the night before. Um, and yeah, mullein is great if you have like respiratory issues, asthma. It really is a great plant to know. So it's also a biennial similar to burdock, and so the first year it's just kind of a rosette, and then the second year is when it gets much taller and makes this huge, huge, huge flower stalk that has these bright yellow flowers. Really, really beautiful. They'll also grow pretty readily anywhere. I've seen them growing in people's like they're in planted like plant pots. I've seen them in um by the beach. I've seen them in right in ditches along like the expressway, in parking lots, really anywhere. They're very resilient as well. So you probably recognize these. Um, Here's a close up of how they start to look once they're getting ready to put up that flower stalk. Um, but you can just see those leaves, and they're so fuzzy. So maybe you can see in the video, but they're just so soft. I love when I get big bags of dried mullein. It feels like a pillow. It's so great. And this is when they are going into, they're in flowers. So you can see these really tall, tall, tall flower stalks. And here's a close up of those flowers. So there are these bright yellow, um, and they're used for so many different things. They're used. You can take these flowers and put them into olive oil. You can infuse them. Sometimes it's added with some garlic as well, and then you let that infuse for like a couple weeks, and that is used as an earache oil. So an oil that's actually placed into the ear to soothe earaches. So it's still very commonly used that way. And here are the seeds. And so the seeds are really neat too, because fun fact, they're actually outlawed in all 50 states to use for the use by fishermen. And so they actually cause fish, they stun fish. So um, when you actually here we go. When you actually use mullein seeds and you throw them into the water, it actually they release these chemicals that any fish that are just in that general vicinity, they get stunned and they basically get paralyzed and float to the top. And that will last for a couple minutes until like it kind of dissipates. Um, and so a lot of fishermen were using that to be able to catch fish. So now they're outlawed. So you can't do that anymore. But yeah, you can still. I found that folks are still, still use that trick. um, but yes, but you will get in a lot of trouble if you do that. Otherwise, I don't know about any other uses for the seeds. Um, but the flowers, yes, the flowers are typically used in oil for earaches, and then otherwise, it's really the leaves that are really the star of the show. And so they can be burned, just dried and then burned, and you can breathe them in. And it helps dilate your bronchioles. So especially if you have asthma like myself, um, I love that. I have mullein cigarettes as well. It's just like mullein. There's nothing in there, no nicotine or anything. And it sounds counterintuitive to smoke if you're having trouble breathing. But what it is it has these little hairs, and it actually causes your bronchioles to dilate. And so I don't like taking my asthma pump. I have one, of course, but it gives me the shakes. I don't know if anyone else here has asthma and has experienced that. Um, but 9 times out of 10, if I have some mullein tea, or I'll have I'll burn some mullein, and I'm good. I'm good. I don't need to take my pump. But of course, always have your pump for emergencies. But yeah, more often than not, it does the trick, and so I don't end up having to take my pump. Yeah, it's also great to take like after you're recovering from a sickness. It kind of helps clear out your lymph nodes. Um, it's great on the skin too for any like rashes. I mean, it's so great. It's very calming. Um, it is a wonderful plant to get to know. And yeah, you can make the oils, and then you can have the oils in your pantry whenever you need them. And then, oh, this was the last one, plantain. So you might recognize this one too. So they have these great parallel veins, and so there are a couple plants that it looks like, um, but plantain really is it grows anywhere where it can get full sun. So you see it on in tree pits, like along the expressway, on lawns. It's everywhere, anywhere where it can get a nice amount of light. It's not a plant you typically see like deeper inside of the forest. And then there's two species that are prolific here in North America, which is Plantago major, which is the rounded type of plantain, and then Plantago lanceolata, which is the narrow leaf plantain, which is you also see here has like much longer leaves. Um, the one over here that I had taken a picture of, this is lanceolata, but you can see the parallel veins on that, and so it makes it much easier to identify. But it grows in that rosette kind of fashion as well. And here are the flowers. And so it tends to flower from the bottom upward. So the lower flowers will start to bloom, and then they'll die off. Second kind of wave of flowers will open, and so on. So typically the entire thing isn't flowering at once. But they're very cool. And the seeds, you can actually eat them. They taste like almonds. They actually make a cool trail snack if that is something you'd want to try. Um, Here are the seed heads, as you can see. When I was in Costa Rica, I was asking folks if they use the seeds there too, and they said they actually do to cool the stomach. So it's actually used to relieve like indigestion, and so they're covered. So these seeds, they actually have a lot of mucilage, and in turn that ends up kind of coating the digestive tract. And so it's they said in Spanish, it refresca el estómago. So it means like it refreshes the stomach. Um, so I was like, oh wow, I didn't even realize that, because I just knew you can eat them. I didn't know that they could be used that way as well. But here is just a closer look at those seeds. And yeah, the leaves are incredibly nutritious, incredibly so. Um, they actually, there was like a cool study that was saying that they actually have the nutritional value higher than kale. You can actually make chips out of them. So you know how they make kale chips? You can make plantain chips out of the leaves. They're absolutely delicious. They really are really good. And yeah, so they make a great salad green. It's great for use as an antiseptic as well. So if you have any cuts or scrapes, they're also great for mosquito bites. So if you do get a mosquito bite while you're out and about, similarly to like using the dandelion stalk, use the plantain leaf. And so you basically crush the leaf and put it on wherever you get your mosquito bite. And especially if you're allergic to mosquito bites, it really tampers the swelling and the itching. It really helps with the itching as well. Um, but yeah, so it's something you can definitely use. Um, there's just so many great uses for it, but the topical use is definitely what it's greatly known for. And the story about bandages too, like the reuse, not the reusable, sorry, the adhesive bandages that we know today as band-aids. There's a story about how plantain used to be used essentially for cuts and scrapes. It was like what you used to put on yourself. Um, and that the Johnson and Johnson, the brothers essentially thought, well, what if we created something that was like adhesive instead? And then that's like the lore behind the Band-Aid as it relates to plantain. Um, but yeah, so overall, I mean, I hope I know some folks had asked me to talk about some weeds some more, so I wanted to just share that out. I hope that folks found that interesting. Um, and yeah, I mean, if this is something that interests you, like I really recommend you know, trying to collect some examples and you can press them so that you can kind of learn how to identify them. Really look at their veins, it's something that you definitely want to check out much more fully to be able to kind of go into that. I also created this list of some common like introduced species and here and so I can share that out. Um, and the same with some recommended reading as well. And so I can share that out with folks to check out if you kind of want to learn a little bit more about, you know, uh, foraging for some of these weeds uh, and finding different uses for them. And so have that. But yeah, so it's now time for, feel free to go and explore some different plants. The person in this video just took like a big chunk. I thought that would just be entertaining. Um, but yeah, so feel free to, explore. And yeah, so today is usually scheduled for the plant clinic, so I'll be hanging around for some questions. So feel free to do so. And then next week is an open forum. So any topic goes. So definitely let me know if there's any like requests or anything. You can put that in the chat. But I hope that was informative. It's a little outside of house plant, but people here are also gardening outside. So I definitely folks wanted to learn a little bit more, and I love talking about them. So I selected a couple examples. Um, and oh, it made me jump. Hold on. No, nope. Hold on. Having a little issue here with my slides. There we go. And for folks here, so if you would like to share any plant cuttings with other folks in the community, so feel free to scan that. It gives you access to the Google Doc. And so I had set it up for people to be allowed to edit it. So you can put your information in there in case people want to swap cuttings. So that's something that folks can do. Again, it's a free class, but folks wanted me to post up my Venmo. So there you go. If you're interested in leaving a tip, helping to support these sessions, it's always very, very appreciated. And thank you so much to everyone that does send over some tips on Venmo. It really means a lot. And yes, the Patreon has been live, so feel free to check that out. Now that I have this new opportunity with NYBG, I'm going to be making content that I'm going to be sharing on there as well. And yeah, so thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be hopping onto the chat in a second. But yeah, if you have any questions, it's info@urbangarden.eco. Instagram, same, urbangarden.eco if you'd prefer to connect there. We do have that Facebook group as well. So you're always welcome to check that out, and you can find out more information on the website. So it's pretty all urbangarden.eco across the board, so that it's easier for folks to find. But yeah, so let me check here. Yes, Suzanne. So Suzanne brought up a great point about poisonous hemlock versus wild carrot. Yes, yes. Um, yes. Yes, I can absolutely screen share the hold on. Let's see. So, bum, ba, bum. Trying to open up the other. I have so many things on my desktop. Hold on, it's not picking the right thing to share. There we go. So let's see. Now it should share the right screen. Haha. Okay. Um, but yes, the hemlock versus the wild carrot. So wild carrot, so hemlock, sorry, has these purple kind of spots on its stems that are very different, and also the hairs on wild carrot are very important distinctions. So here's just a cool close up here. There we go. So here you can see with wild carrot also has like this cage, essentially. It's this bract that's under these flowers. Um, and so that's also a great indicator. The leaves, I get why people might get those mixed up. But the wild carrot will not have any purple spots on its stems, and it'll be covered in little hairs, versus the poison hemlock, which is hairless, but it has like these purple smudges. They're like dots all over it. And so that's a really great indicator. And the flowers do look slightly different, but I get why folks, I mean, they are related. So it's very easy, to understand why folks might get it mixed up. We actually saw a bunch of wild carrot over the weekend. And the carrot is so fragrant when you pull them. But yeah, they are very, very different. But this is a great example, Suzanne, pointing that out, of those dangerous lookalikes where hemlock could definitely be fatal, especially if someone has like pre-existing conditions, um, a child or someone elderly. This could be fatal to them. So you definitely don't want to mix that up, definitely. So showing that. Um, Yes, Anthony, that was a great yes, sailors over drinking. That definitely could do the trick too. And Anthony says, growing up, we had to go picking dandelion greens on the University of Buffalo Great Lawn with my parents being Italian. The students thought my parents were the landscapers for the university. My mom would explain how good they were to eat, and she would tell them how good cardoons were. That is awesome. Yes, Suzanne Lithotripsy. Yep. Um, and Sue, no, as far as I know, all of the dandelion species, like the red dandelion, um, these are all they're all edible as far as I know. Yeah. And Holly, where can I get these seeds? Because we found it, we're not able to find the plants. I wouldn't recommend personally planting those seeds on purpose. So you definitely don't want to do that. I would wait until you're able to you come across them. So you don't want to spread them around more than they are, because they are damaging the ecosystem. So you do not want to purposely plant them. But they are something that I mean, some folks will plant certain things like mullein in a pot, like on their property, which is fine because it's not like spreading. But I definitely wouldn't recommend purposely planting the seeds to spread them more. Um, but yeah, but there's so many other plants too that are so great that might be popping up in your area that have incredible medicinal value. Um, Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad. Oh, great, Tiffany and Jill and Suzanne. Oh, that's awesome. Suzanne, what about purslane? Yes, yes, yes. Um, yes, purslane is wonderful. Purslane is absolutely delicious. I love purslane. So it's in like it's related to like Portulacaria, and so like to elephant bush, which is also edible. It's also edible. But yeah, it's definitely something that pops up and people really hate it. One of my aunts, she was like battling one that was growing along her driveway. But it is absolutely delicious. And so that is definitely one of those edibles. Um, yes, yes. I will post Tiffany. If I can post a list of edible weeds and the Instagram name. Yes. So Instagram is urban garden dot eco. And let me share the link to get maybe I put it into my Dropbox in 2 seconds. I think it's common. 2 seconds. I'm trying to see where I put. There we go. So here we go. So let me share, copy link. All right. I'm posting that into the chat. So here's 1 and 2. And 2. So I'm putting both of those links in the chat, and I will post those in the Facebook as well. Yes. Oh, Suzanne, I didn't even see that the hand was raised. I'm so sorry. I was like zoned in on the on the chat. But yes, let me see here. If you're welcome to unmute yourself if you'd like. Let me see. But thank you for all the commentary. Yeah, like the purslane, yes, absolutely amazing.
Sorry, I accidentally had that up.
No, 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 that's totally fine. Oh, and you said that PBS has a program about eating from nature. I need to check that out. Um,
It's it's been fantastic. He has a cook with him. It's a team, and the
mhm,
cook comes up with recipes on these products that he's has selected from nature.
that's great. Um, that's actually reminding me there's a great book called The Wild Vegetarian Cookbook. Let me pull that up. The Wild. So if anyone ever visits New York, there's also this great guy who does tours as well. But he's a chef. And so here we go. So I mean, oof, I'm seeing, so it looks like the newer edition is really expensive. But it looks like there's some of the used ones from like the first edition that are much more affordable. Um, my edition is like a gray color, so I don't have this version of it. Um, but it's a hefty book. Um, and what he does is he actually brings the food, like different snacks and sauces and things that he makes from all these different edibles. And so when you're going, it's more of like a culinary walk. And so as you walk, he introduces you to the plant, and then you can eat the plant in the ways that he's kind of prepared them in different ways. But he's great. His daughter Violet is, oh my gosh, I'd been to a couple of their walks, and so she was coming when she was still like like little, like 9, 10 years old. And then I went to another walk he did when she was like 13. Um, and I see her now. She's leading her own walks and stuff, and she's, yeah, I think she's like 18 or 19 now. So, um, but they're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. But yeah, he's really good, and those recipes, oof, yes, highly recommend. So the Wild Vegetarian Cookbook. Definitely find a used copy because yeah, that's pretty expensive. I didn't realize how expensive his book had gotten. Um, but yeah, it's absolutely delicious stuff in there. Um, oh, Diana's asking, so how much of the weed do you use for medicinal treatment to be effective? So it depends on definitely on the plant. So the dosages work differently, especially in terms of the concentration. So certain things, so just know that certain extracts, like I could do a whole class on extracts too, on how that works. Because so certain plants they have certain, so they're called phytoconstituents, so they're basically like the plant chemicals that are very accessible by using like a water to extract them. So especially things like vitamins, like these those types of things are much more soluble with water. So if you're looking to take advantage of the nutritional medicinal values of a plant, right? Like let's say something like nettles, for instance, right? You really want to take advantage of all the good stuff, or red clover with like the magnesium and the phosphorus and the iron. You're like, oh yeah, that's what I really want to take advantage of. Tea or infusions, best way to go, because that's how you're going to get that. Once you're doing something like an alcohol extract, so with the teas and infusions, you're drinking cups. You're good, and usually it's 1 to 2 teaspoons per cup of water. And so, but then if it's something um, like roots or something like that, roots and seeds, those tend to need a little bit more extraction power. So like a tea is not enough. So you could have a tea if you just want like the taste, but if you're really trying to work with a plant medicinally, that's like a root, that's the root part of the root. You want to let that steep overnight. So you let it kind of sit for like 8 hours at the very least. Um, and so then that's easier, or you can use a decoction. And so that's great for when folks, that usually comes into play when folks are actively sick, especially like cold, flu, virus. And so where you take the roots, for instance, and you put them in a pot with a little bit of water, and you kind of on simmer, you kind of let it extract that way, where like for about 40 minutes to 60 minutes, you let that sit kind of on a low simmer. And that really, really makes it super, super concentrated. And then folks will sip that as a tea instead. So that usually comes into play when folks are actively sick. When you have an alcohol tincture, so that also depends. If it's something like motherwort, which is great for anxiety, you only need a couple drops. So it's like 5 to 8 drops per dose. Um, but then there are other things like with nettle tincture is different. So nettle tincture, alcohol tinctures won't have those vitamins and minerals. So because alcohol isn't good at taking that stuff out. It is good at taking out other types of constituents that tend to be a lot of the antis, so like antimicrobial um, constituents that are like anti-inflammatory or antihistamine for like for nettles. And so what you can do is if you know you're prone to like seasonal allergies, folks will start taking nettle tincture. And that one is like 3 times a day. So like you just take a pump of like with a little dropper 3 times a day, every day for like 6 weeks before that allergy season is upon you. And it builds up in your system and it helps you kind of deal much better with the allergies of the season. So yeah, it can differ very, very differently in terms of dosages. So some plants are, once you get them that concentrated, it's just a couple drops and that's it. Others you can take like 2, 3 times a day. Um, there's other tinctures that are really like mild where you can kind of take them. Things like rose tincture is great for like headaches, cuts, scrapes, burns. It's good for so many different things, and that can be taken as needed. So yeah, so it differs. There's a great book. Um, is that it? I'm trying to see if I can see it from here. But it's like herbal therapeutics. Give me 2 seconds, I'll grab it. But it's all about dosages, and it's a tiny book. It's a tiny book. Um, but ooh, my charger. Um, it's seriously good to have. Here it is. Therapeutic Herb Manual. There we go. So you can still find it. It's a tiny book, but you can still find it like in thrift stores, or online. Oh, I have hyssop. I told you I have plants like in all of I've said that in a previous class, but this is anise hyssop. Doesn't have a scent anymore. But yeah, in all my books, all of them, you grab a book and there's there's leaves and flowers all over. Um, but what I love about this one specifically, which is very different from a lot of the other herb books I have, is that it not only tells you a little bit, it's not a lot, but it's like a little bit about each plant, but it tells you what's the best way to extract them. And so here it's saying that like an an actual um like liquid extract of a dried mature seed for fennel, for instance. Um, for feverfew, it says that if you make a liquid extract, the best is to use a dried leaf or flower. Something like with St. John's wort, you actually have to use the fresh flower when you're making a preparation. So dried St. John's wort just doesn't work the same. And so what I love is it tells you what's the best like timing in terms of using the plant and whether a liquid extract is best, alcohol or water. And it talks about the dose. So it goes specifically into the dosages. And it also lists the cautions, which are great, but it really goes into the different dosages. And so I don't see that like it's not a blanket thing that we see in all herbal books. So, and speaking of that, so Brian and I know I had mentioned it a little bit ago, but I've been so swamped after taking over Herbalists Without Borders. It has literally taken over my life. So I'm finally, I'm settling into the role, and it's been we're gonna, be a year and a couple months that I've been taking over that nonprofit. So it's been a learning curve. So I'm finally like settling in. I was like, so I mean, I'm still swamped, but I feel like I was in a brand new role. I didn't know how things worked. I was kind of learning as I go. And so it's been a, a thing. But now that things are kind of simmering down, I can go back to focusing on my other projects. And so the Brian and we are working on an app that is going to be centered around herbs um, and books. So I'm really excited to go back to working with that. But yeah, so you're going to hear more about that because all of my students are going to get free access. So yeah, I'm really excited. And so far, I mean, I had put it down. I had put that project down, and but when I put it down, I already had like internally, I have 1,300 herbs that were currently on my list. So we're going to work on that, getting that done so that we can finally release it. It's been like on pause on the back burner for a couple months. Um, and get that kind of off and going, and then I'll continue adding to it. But I think 1,300 is a good start. I think I kept thinking like, no, I want more. I feel like I should have more prepared. But I was like, I was thinking about it this weekend. I was like, I think 1300 is more than enough herbs to start off with. So, um, so yeah, so there's a lot of information, and I'm excited. So we're gonna try to get that out to folks. Finally. So I'll keep everyone updated with that. And Deanna, are the extracts that are available for purchase from the vitamin store reliable as far as efficacy? Yeah, sure. So the vitamin store, yeah, you can get some tinctures. I really recommend the brand Herb Farm, but they spell farm like pharmacy, so it's PHARM. Herb Farm is my favorite. So they're my favorite. You can also make your own tinctures as well. So like I have a bunch. I've been working on my on like doing all of my inventory for my apothecary. Um and I'll be doing a video on that soon because I'm still labeling everything with like updated labels because a lot of them were just labeled like this. So so here I have like a bunch of tinctures. There's so many. I have so many tinctures that I've made myself that I've been using. I've sold a lot, but um this is lavender tincture. Um but yeah, it's great to have, and you can make your own. So if folks want, I'm happy to do a lecture on extracts. I have a bunch of tinctures that are still macerating as well, so that means that they're still they haven't been decanted and processed yet. So if folks are interested, I could definitely do a class on just tinctures, let's say, and then I can show the process of making one and decanting one that I've had sitting for a couple months, to kind of show you that whole process and all the tools that you can use and all that. So that'd be fun for folks if to show folks if they're interested. Uh, but yeah. So I've been working on that. I actually want to share those labels with everyone. I had gotten a bunch of these like labels to put on my apothecary because again, they were all like written with tape. Like I just taped them on. And as I was kind of doing my inventory and going through, I was like, I really want to make these containers look nicer. And so I think I had showed them last week that I started doing it. I got these like vintage looking labels, and to just make them look a little cooler. And so I got them that I putting them on like on jars and on the containers. So like here we go. Like here cloves. So they have this vintage look to them. And I mean, hey, that's an upgrade from from this. But yeah, so like I got these really cool labels, and I actually found the templates. And so I downloaded those, and then you just print them out on adhesive paper, and you can cut them out, and then you can mess with the size, and you can put them on, your spice cabinet because there's a bunch that is just like cinnamon, cumin, fennel, coriander, things like that, like very common kitchen spices as well. So it looks so much nicer. And yeah, it's like a fun little project to do. And I really it's like transformed my cabinet. It looks so much prettier. It's not finished because I have a lot. But I am also doing like an inventory list. So I know also, and I'll share that out too. But yeah, so I'll share out those templates too if folks want to download them and print out their own herb labels, because it's really nice. It's like a really cool feeling to do. It was a fun project. So I was continuing yesterday. I gave like 2 hours of time to work on it, because it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I have so many herbs. It's like really bad. Like it was a lot. I was like, holy moly, I forgot I had this. But yeah, so but thanks so much everyone for joining and tuning in. And um oh yes, thank you, Deanna. And yeah, everyone, enjoy the rest of your Monday. I hope you had a lovely weekend and you're off to a good start this week. And yeah, have a great week and just relax. Yeah, I hope everyone's hanging out and yeah, I might be tuning in next Monday from Myrtle Beach. We'll see how that goes. If we're unsure right now if we're going to be heading down there or not. So I might be in a different location. So next Monday. But yeah, I will see everyone and please be safe and have a great one.
To bye, Jocelyn.
Bye. Have a great one, everyone.